Okay, today we're going to make Turkish mom cookies. I think closest thing that is to this recipe is the Italian biscottis, except that you don't really toast it on both sides and the shape is different. Anyway, please see the description for the ingredients. The recipe calls for 2 eggs with the yolks separated. The yolks, we're going to use them later to garnish the top of the cookies. I'm separating the yolks, just using the whites. And the third egg, we're going to use the entire egg inside the dough. And next, we're going to get some yogurt. Um, Again, look at the description for the actual measurement. But I'm using half cup uh, measure here, and thus I'm going to put 3 of those inside the dough. Alright, let's speed it up a bit. You don't have to be really exact. You can see I'm kind of being sloppy with my measurement, but it's roughly about that. I think the recipe is forgiving if you're not really being exactly accurate. You can make variations of the same recipe. For instance, I'm going to be putting orange peels into the dough. You don't have to. You can also put lemon if you want. You can also put nuts inside it. In fact, I would like it with nuts, but my kids don't like it with nuts, so hence I'm making it without nuts. I like them not so sweet, so that recipe or the ingredients contents is, I think, talking about like 1.5 cup of sugar. So if you like it more sweeter, then you should put some more sugar. All right, so far we have um, the vegetable oil, the eggs, yogurt, and sugar. We're mixing that nicely. Make sure it's all mixed. Yogurt, I used Greek yogurt, but again, you can use any kind of plain yogurt as long as it's plain. So here's the orange peel. Obviously, you should wash your orange before you start using the peel. I used the entire orange for this batch. Uh, it really depends on your liking whether you want, that orange flavor to pop. Again, we're going to mix it up. Make sure it's all mixed well. So one final thing that we're going to put in before we start putting the flour is the baking powder. I would say this is probably the most important ingredient. And I'm using 2 tablespoons. And let's get that mixed up nicely. This will ensure that it's all spread nicely and mixed very nicely before you start putting the flour, because once you put the flour, it may not really go through the entire mixture. So recipe does call for like 6 cups of flour, and you're gonna see I will mix them slowly. So just 3 cups and then start mixing it. This is again to ensure that we have a uniform distribution of all the ingredients. But you will see that it will take entire 6 cups of flour. But it's always a good idea to mix your flour slowly. So the second time I put 2 more, and I'm going to mix that, and then finally I'm going to put 1 more cup of flour. You can get an idea of like the consistency of the dough as you mix it. Right now it's a bit too soft and too sticky, so that final cup of flour is going to make sure that it's coming out in the consistency that we want. It's not going to be too sticky when you're handling it. But the recipe is forgiving as long as you don't put too much flour. So this is exactly the kind of consistency you want to end up in. Alright, now we're ready to shape them. On a cookie sheet I am putting parchment paper or baking paper. My hands are a bit damp to prevent the dough from sticking into my hands. Relatively large. Just roll them up and shape them into like a patty. And you should separate them, each piece, a bit, because as they bake they're going to rise and expand. I think it's fine if they end up like touching each other, that you have to separate from each other. But I think this this much separation has been enough when I make them in the past. Alright, so let's speed up this. This batch actually turned out, I had to cook in 2 separate batches. So depending on how many people you're cooking for, you might want to use half the recipe. And those 2 yolks that we separated in the beginning, now we're going to mix them up well, and we're going to spread it on the top. When they bake, it comes out very visually appealing. Okay, you can put like a drop of water inside it if you want it to be not so thick. I spread that first one relatively thick. You don't have to spread that much. As you can see, like the next cookies, I'm touching both cookies or multiple cookies at the same time, so so that it's not so thick. And I still have another batch to go, so I want the yolk to last for the remaining dough as well. Then you bake it at 200 degrees Celsius or 400 Fahrenheit. I don't have a time, but when they come out this color, light brown with the egg garnished orange color like this, that's when you're done. You can always test that the contents, the inside is cooked, but this is what they're supposed to look like when they come out. And let's look at the bottom. Very nicely cooked. And I will also try to see with one hand if I can break it so you can see the inside. Very nice. Obviously they are nice best when they're warm.